What's up, good people, and welcome back to my channel where we bond over our favorite TV shows, trending topics, and everything in between that we care about. So today, I know many of you have been waiting for my commentary on what has been circling these internet streets since the end of last week, which is Tim Norman is definitely going down. So as of June 3rd of 2022, Travell Anthony Hill has officially voluntarily entered a plea of guilty of being a part of the plan to take the life of Andre Montgomery, who was Tim Norman's nephew. So if any of this is new to you and you're not all caught up, I've been covering this story for, I think, what, a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. So there are many videos. I have a whole playlist on this. And so if you click on the card above, you can catch up and then come back to this video and you'll understand what's happening. So in this video, I'm not going to rehash a lot of things that we've talked about in the past. However, in this video, what I will do is go over the actual plea agreement and just give an overview of just some of the things that were shared in this. And there's some like connecting pieces now that we didn't have before. So what's clear at this point is that Tim Norman is definitely going down. We all knew he was guilty. I mean, you know, 99.9% of us knew he was guilty, especially after we read the initial complaint once he was arrested. It was very clear that the feds had everything they needed. They had wrote the story out for us at that point. So this is just giving us some of the finer details and basically what has occurred from the perspective of Travell Anthony Hill. So let's get into it. So basically with Travell giving a voluntary plea of guilty, it's an agreement that he's made with the federal government, basically so that no additional charges will be added to him as long as what he's been sharing is true. So the federal government agrees that no further prosecution will be brought in that district relative to the defendant's use of facilities of interstate commerce, a cell phone, telephone to commit the taking of the life of Andre Montgomery in exchange for monetary compensation on or about March 14th of 2016, of which the government is aware of this time. So they're basically saying that as long as what he's admitting the guilty plea to, as long as it falls within the confines of this and there's no additional stuff, no shenanigans that they're not aware of that he's a part of, they will not press additional charges in relation to this case. So in count one, Travell is actually pleading guilty to the fact that he was a part of using a cell phone in order to commit the crime of taking Andre Montgomery's life. So in count one, the government goes on to say, additionally, the defendant voluntarily and intentionally joined the agreement. And so that would be the agreement that they made with the M for Hire plot that was organized by Big Hip Tim Norman himself. And then it goes on to say in part C that at the time the defendant joined the agreement, the defendant knew the purpose of the agreement. So he was very clear of what was happening, the end result that they were desiring, which unfortunately they achieved. And then in part D, it says that while the agreement was in effect, a person or persons who had joined in the agreement knowingly undertook one or more overt acts for the purpose of carrying out or carrying forward the agreement. And then it says in part E that the death of Andre Montgomery resulted from the conspiracy on March 14th of 2016. So that was count one. So it was related to the cell phone usage and him voluntarily participating in the plan in of itself, which was to carry out what ended up happening with Andre Montgomery in the end, unfortunately. And then in count two, it talks about the fact that he used the cellular phone in order to take the life of Andre. And then it resulted also in monetary compensation for Travell Hill of $5,000, which is crazy. Like when you really think about it, $5,000 to not only to take someone's life, but then on top of that, you're risking your life. So your life, the life of that person, but also your life was only worth $5,000. That says a lot about that. And this, like, where's your heart? That's crazy. So then on page 4, this guilty plea agreement goes into the facts. And so it states on March 14th of 2016 at approximately 8:02 p.m., Andre Montgomery, hereinafter known as Montgomery, was taken by gunfire at 3964 Natural Bridge Avenue which is located in the city of St. Louis within the Eastern District of Missouri. Montgomery's cell phone was located in close proximity to his body and was forensically examined following the taking of his life. And it states that witnesses at the scene indicated that Montgomery went outside to meet someone after receiving a telephone call, and his life was taken shortly thereafter. And I'll catch some of you up and give some details to kind of remind us as it relates to this, but I want to read a little bit more. Okay, and then it says, several days prior to March 14th, defendant Travell Hill had met with an unindicted mutual acquaintance of Hill and co-defendant James Timothy Norman, who was Montgomery's uncle. So this is that other person that has been spoken of really since the beginning. Once Travell Hill was arrested, they were saying that there were two people involved, like possibly two people who actually took his life. But it looks like the other person was playing a part in the sense of they knew what was about to happen or knew what was being planned, but maybe they didn't, obviously, they didn't intervene. But maybe they are the person who ended up, as they say in the streets, snitching on this whole situation. Maybe the feds caught up with them and they were like, hey, I'm going to let you know all of it. And maybe that's why they're unindicted. They probably got off scot-free. So we'll see. Let's read more. It says, at the meeting, the mutual acquaintance informed Hill that Norman wanted Montgomery's life taken. Montgomery was staying at a hotel in St. Louis County. So the hotel that Andre was staying at, and I know that's not in here, was the La Quinta Inn, which was actually the place where he was actually supposed to originally be taken out. And we'll get into that in a minute. But okay, so then it goes on to say, on March 14, 2016, Hill met with Norman at Norman's request south of downtown St. Louis, Missouri, near the Peabody housing complex, which is where Hill was living at the time. Norman met with Hill for the purpose of having a discussion. Following that discussion, it was Hill's understanding that Norman wanted Hill to eliminate Montgomery. Norman advised Hill that a female whom Hill now knows to be co-defendant Terica Ellis would be contacting him on his cell phone to advise Hill where Montgomery could be located for the purpose of taking his life. So this is key. So Terica knew what was going down. Now, I remember when this first all started coming out, part of her alibi was that she didn't know. She knew that Tim wanted somebody to meet up with Andre and something was going to go down, but she thought that they were just going to beat him up. She was all down for it. She knew better. Then she ended up getting like 10,000 for this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think she got, or 9,000. I think she got 9,000 for this to keep it under the 10,000 threshold to alert the IRS. So just to catch up on the part that has been covered. So originally on that day of, Terica went to Andre's hotel, which was at the La Quinta Inn, with the intentions of being intimate with him. And then she was going to bring him out so that he could then be taken out in the parking lot. And it was her job to lure out Andre because of the fact that she was a stripper. He had met her at the strip club. He was attracted to her, et cetera, et cetera. So all the while she was being used as a black widow to lure him to end up ending his life. And so being none the wiser, Andre has her over. They do their thing. And when she lets Tim know that, hey, you know, he's here, I got him in the parking lot, I'm bring him to the parking lot or whatever, Tim then says, my boys aren't ready yet. So that meant that where it was supposed to happen, which was earlier in the day in the parking lot of the hotel, it didn't happen. So then that foiled that part of the plan. So then Terica went to the mall to end up buying Andre a pair of pants. And that was her way to be able to meet up with him later. So then she reaches out to him later on that evening and tells him she wants to meet up with him. She had bought him something and she wanted to know where he was. So Andre at that time was at the house on Natural Bridge with his friends. And I think there was a makeshift home studio there, music studio. And so she ends up coming to that location. She calls him when she's outside to get him to come out to the car. He comes out to the car, and then let's move on to what happens after that. So it goes on to say, after Travell met with Norman on March 14th of 2016, Hill obtained a .38 caliber semi-automatic firearm from someone nearby his residence. Hill chose this type of firearm because, among other things, it was small and could easily be concealed inside of a sweatshirt. That's crazy. Okay, later in the day, on March 14th of 2016, Hill received a call on his cell phone from Terica Ellis. Ellis advised Hill of the address where Montgomery could be located and advised Hill that she was going to lure Montgomery outside of the house, which would allow Hill to take his life. After using this cell phone to learn the address of Montgomery's location from Terica Ellis, Hill traveled to the location, which was near the interstate of Natural Bridge and Warren Avenue. Hill arrived there armed with a handgun. Hill observed Montgomery emerge from the residence, but Hill was unsure if it was actually Montgomery initially. In order to get closer to him to confirm his identity, Hill asked Montgomery if he had any marijuana. At that time, Hill confirmed that in fact it was Montgomery in front of the residence. This is, oh Jesus, it's like reading this again, and this is like, you know, we've read this with the initial indictment, but it's just, I don't know, it's still like really, really unbelievable that people would do this to another human being, for one, an innocent human being, and then the fact that the person who even got this ball rolling was actually the person's uncle, a blood relative, is just like beyond comprehension. So, yeah, okay, so I'm like, yeah, so I'm like trying to, it's like it's starting to, okay. Let me get back into commentary mode. Trying to suppress my emotions so that I can get through the commentary. So, all right, let's go. Okay, it says, Hill watched Montgomery as he approached a vehicle and spoke with at least one occupant in the vehicle, whom Hill assumed to be Terica Ellis. But Hill was unable to see inside of the vehicle at the time. Hill watched as Montgomery turned back to walk towards the residence at Natural Bridge. So that vehicle that Andre came out to was in fact the vehicle that Terica Ellis was in. So again, where I left off on the story was that she had called him, you know, a little while before, maybe like an hour before, and to find out where he was so that she could bring him the pair of pants and then lure him outside of that house. So he came out to her, got in the car. They talked, I think it was her version of the story, where they talked for 2 to 3 minutes. It wasn't even long at all that they were in the car because, again, she just was luring him out. Just horrible, horrible, horrible. But she was just luring him out. That was her whole goal, not to really converse with him and not that she cared about him at all, obviously. So he then gets out of the car, and as he's walking back into the house is when we get to this point. So then Hill says someone stopped Montgomery. Hill then said he walked closer to him, then discharged his firearm multiple times, striking Montgomery. Hill fled the scene, disposing of both his cell phone and firearm. Montgomery ultimately lost his life inside of the residence as a result of the shots. Okay. No wonder it was taking me so long to do this video. This is what it was. Okay. All right. I'm doing this for y'all because, okay. Okay, so on March 16th, 2016, Norman contacted Hill and advised Hill to meet with a separate individual who was known by both Hill and Norman. That same day, Hill met up with the individual. During the brief meeting, the individual handed Hill a bag containing approximately $5,000 in United States currency, at which time the individual told Hill words to the effect of, "Keep your mouth quiet." Hill accepted the payment, knowing that it was payment for Norman in exchange for Hill taking the life of Andre Montgomery. That's crazy. So I guess, so the question is, I'm assuming, based on what we have so far, that this individual who actually gave Travell the cash payment after the horrible act that he committed is maybe the person that ended up probably being the first snitch to, like, you know, take this whole thing down. And it's funny that Travell is saying the person said, "Keep your mouth quiet." And obviously that person didn't. He was like, "Those instructions are for you, not for me." Oh, God. It's so much. It's so much. It's so disheartening. And the fact that, like, it's hard to read. It's kind of hard to keep rereading this stuff and kind of the play-by-play and like when you mentally go there, because as you're reading, you're like visualizing it. And I wasn't there, but it's like, this is hard to even do. So I can't imagine being one of the people involved in this. And even if they were wrapped up, I don't know, like out of their mind during the time, in the years following, the 4 years plus following before they got caught up, were they haunted by this? Because this is kind of haunting. Like just replaying it, reading this is haunting. I don't see how they could live with themselves. I don't see why Travell is the only one pleading guilty. In my mind, the rest of them should be just as haunted, or in the position of feeling urged to plead guilty the way that Travell Hill was. But yeah, it's just, it's amazing me that these people can continue to act like they're innocent, and Tim Norman is playing games with the justice system. So that just shows that he has literally no remorse. He's not even saying, okay, I done got caught up, whatever happened, whatever mental illness he had or evilness. He can't even say, okay, I got caught, I'm just going to let this happen and spend the rest of my life in jail or death penalty, which he deserves in my opinion. But that's a whole nother story. I can't even say that word on YouTube, but it's true. But anyway, back to this. It goes on to say the defendant fully understands that the only possible penalty authorized by the law for the crimes to which he is pleading guilty is imprisonment for a term of life, a fine of no more than $250,000, and both such imprisonment and fine. The court may also impose a period of supervised release of no more than 3 years. Yeah, I think part of the reason, and I've heard it other places, but I think part of the reason that he pled guilty as well is because of the overwhelming evidence that, again, we read in the complaint, like I said, almost 2 years ago at this point. And so this is basically his only option to possibly reduce a life sentence. I don't think he deserves anything less than literally life in prison. And good luck with the $250,000. I don't know how you're going to make that up. But, I mean, because he was taking a life for $5,000. So obviously he ain't got nowhere near $250,000 because he thought that was enough for all of this. So that's basically the gist of this 13-page guilty plea agreement. Where we are now is, I think this is a wrap. It's definitely a wrap for Tim Norman. I don't know if he's going to continue to play the games with the courts. He has been filing motions left and right, delaying, changing attorneys, like he's changing draws. So he's been playing a game with the court system that I have not been interested in commentating on. With, every few weeks he's done something different. There are definitely a lot of other great commentators on YouTube and elsewhere who have been definitely covering and keeping people abreast of those sort of movements. I'm more concerned with like these this kind of stuff, these big motions, these big changes and shifts in the case, because Tim is definitely playing a game with the justice system because he knows he's going down. So because he's a con artist and he's been able to bamboozle many of us for many years to think he wasn't this horrible of a person, he's trying to do the same thing with the justice system, with the smoke and mirror show. It ain't working, of course. So one of his last big plays, I think, was trying to get his cell phone taken out of evidence, because his cell phone definitely connects him to this whole thing. I think because he didn't, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, y'all, but I almost feel like he's the only one that didn't get the burner phone. Like he got Terica and Travell the burner, and maybe it was the other third person. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's been too long now. But anyway, his cell phone, they expect to have, his cell phone has evidence on it. And so he's been trying to get them to take his cell phone out of being part of the evidence, because he's saying they illegally obtained it without a warrant. And so anyway, that doesn't seem to have worked for him at this point. And so hopefully we'll be getting to the point where there'll actually be a trial set very soon. I feel like it's a wrap. I don't know how much we got to get into with the actual person who took Andre's life. Now, for sure, we know he's going to testify to the fact that James Timothy Norman, was the leader of all this. He spearheaded this whole thing. So I'll be following this in the sense of, you know, hopefully when we get to a trial, hopefully it's televised, we'll see, have no idea. But this has to be very hard for the family, for Andre's mom, for his siblings, and of course those that we know from Sweetie Pies, even friends. You know, for one, this has been drug on for 6 years. It's basically going on 7 years by the time this is, hopefully by the time this is said and done. And so that is a long time. Like when you lose someone, that's enough. And then when you lose them tragically, there's always, you know, the trauma that's related to that. And can you imagine not even being able to really fully work your way through the grieving process because of the fact that it keeps coming back up with new facts? And yeah, so let's keep Andre's mom and the family and Miss Robbie, who's trying to live her best life and obviously trying to still have a legacy that unfortunately has been tainted with the actions of her son, who is a horrible human being. This is what it is. So with that, that's all I have for this particular video. We have more coming. I definitely still have the like Sweetie Pies investigative series like on my to-do list. It's just been so much to try to keep up with and do, and you know, it's a whole lot going on behind the scenes. So hopefully it's still in our future. Long story short, at this point I can't tell you for sure. I think it is. I want to do it. It's just I'm only one person. So with that, if you've made it to this point in the video, please hit that like button below to help us grow. Also, if you're new to this channel or returning and you have not subscribed as of yet, this would be a great time for you to hit that subscribe button below and join one of the most evolved subscriber families in these YouTube streets. And with that, until next time, until I upload the next video, make sure to take care and be blessed. Peace.
Hey, poppin' like I'm supposed to. Watch out for the people that ain't close to. Speak a little something you could toast to. I ain't tryna hear about what you won't do. Moving like I'm into. Hit the ground running like the rent do. Speak a little something that you're into. I ain't tryna hear about what you been through. Like hold up, say what's the hold up. I got the pack, who got the roll up? I'm tryna pull up. It seem like every time I show up, it gotta go up. See the drip, they see the glow up. Oh, now they know us. See, it's funny how my pockets out of shape, but I'm fit for the flex. Clear the phone call, hit my chick with a text. Parlay through the bird with my drip from the jets. Save a couple hundred by your with the rest.